I've been thinking about Avengers Doomsday, especially how many characters it's probably going to throw at us and how people are going to react. At first I wasn't sure Marvel could make that work, but after seeing what happened with Supergirl and Jason Momoa's Lobo, I think Doomsday's job just became a whole lot easier. There are also a bunch of new details about the movie that have dropped, and if you haven't seen them yet, you're in the right place because we're breaking all of it down. 2026 is turning into a ridiculous year for superhero movies. DC has already kicked things off with Supergirl, which is helping shape this new version of the DC Universe, and in just a month we're getting Spider-Man Brand New Day. That movie already has people talking because the trailers dropped some pretty wild reveals, including the brutal surprise that MJ has a new boyfriend. Fans definitely weren't expecting that, but even with all that hype, the biggest event is still Avengers Doomsday, which arrives on December 18th. It'll be the first Avengers movie in 7 years, and that's a much bigger deal than just another MCU release. Since Endgame, Marvel has kept putting out movies and shows, but if we're being real, the franchise has struggled to find one clear direction. There have been good projects, bad ones, and a bunch that just felt disconnected. So, Doomsday isn't just another blockbuster, it has to prove the MCU actually knows where it's heading. That's a lot of pressure, although Marvel might have gotten unexpected help from its biggest rival. Funny enough, Supergirl may have solved one of Doomsday's biggest problems before the movie even comes out. One of the biggest talking points from Supergirl wasn't actually Supergirl herself, it was Jason Momoa as Lobo. Even though Millie Alcock officially takes center stage as Kara, the movie also introduces new characters like Ruthie and, of course, Lobo. He's loud, violent, unpredictable, and only helps people when it benefits him. Basically, he's exactly what comic fans expected. The interesting part isn't just the character, it's the casting. Momoa spent years playing Aquaman in the old DC universe, so when it was announced he'd return as an entirely different character, people were skeptical. A lot of fans thought audiences would only see Aquaman wearing a different costume. Some even expected it to be distracting enough to hurt the movie. That didn't happen. People completely bought into Momoa as Lobo because he fit the role so well. His previous time as Aquaman barely mattered. Fans accepted him almost immediately, and that says a lot because comic book fans usually don't let things like that slide. If the performance works, people move on. It's that simple. So why does that matter for Marvel? Doomsday is bringing back Robert Downey Jr., except he's not returning as Tony Stark, he's playing Dr. Doom. When Marvel revealed that, the internet exploded. Everyone immediately started trying to figure out how it could possibly work. The biggest theory is still that Doom is some kind of Tony Stark variant from another universe, and that would make sense. Marvel isn't going to pretend audiences forgot what Robert Downey Jr. looks like. There has to be an explanation. Although the situation is different from Momoa's, Supergirl proved something important. Audiences are willing to accept an actor returning as a completely different character if the casting makes sense. That's one less thing Marvel has to worry about. People criticizing Downey's return now have a much weaker argument because another superhero franchise already pulled off something similar. Of course, Tony Stark is a much bigger figure in the MCU than Aquaman ever was in the DCEU, so Marvel can't simply ignore the resemblance. They need to explain it. But at least fans have already shown they're open to the idea instead of rejecting it immediately. Now let's talk about everything else we know from the first Doomsday footage shown at CinemaCon because there were a bunch of interesting reveals. One of the biggest surprises was Professor Charles Xavier. Patrick Stewart returns again, although this version is different from the one audiences knew in the Fox X-Men movies. In the footage, Xavier looks genuinely terrified while staring at some massive explosion outside the X-Mansion. The mansion itself is in ruins. That's a pretty scary image because Professor X isn't someone who scares easily. If he's worried, everyone else probably should be too. Namor also gets several moments in the trailer. He's flying around looking stressed, and there's an important meeting involving Wakanda and Talokan. Another shot shows the Fantastic Four standing in what used to be the ocean, except huge walls of water are standing on both sides. Maybe Namor caused that, or maybe something even bigger is happening. Either way, it's clear the natural world is getting torn apart. Cassie Lang was another unexpected appearance. Nobody even knew she was part of the movie until now. The trailer shows Scott Lang sharing an emotional moment with his daughter before what looks like a major battle. It feels like a goodbye because superhero movies love doing that right before everything falls apart. Her appearance also makes it much more likely that Marvel is finally setting up the Young Avengers or Champions in a serious way instead of just teasing them forever. Mystique also makes things much more complicated. Rebecca Romijn returns, and the trailer shows her disguising herself as Yelena Belova. That leads to two versions of Yelena fighting each other, which is exactly the kind of multiverse chaos people expected from this movie. It also hints that Avengers and X-Men won't exactly be allies from the beginning. They're probably heading straight toward conflict. Yelena herself seems to have a much bigger role than people expected. After everything that happened in Thunderbolts, she appears to be one of the central leaders of Marvel's new generation of heroes. She's involved in multiple scenes, including a meeting with the Fantastic Four and Captain America's team at Avengers Tower. Marvel clearly isn't treating her like a side character anymore. Shang-Chi also gets a huge action scene against Gambit. That's a matchup nobody really predicted, but it looks incredible. Shang-Chi is using the 10 rings at full power, while Gambit is matching him blow for blow with his charged-up kinetic attacks. Considering how powerful the 10 rings are supposed to be, Gambit holding his own says a lot about how strong Marvel wants him to be going forward. This is also Gambit's first appearance since Deadpool and Wolverine, so fans finally get another look at him. The fight even takes place inside the X-Mansion, confirming that at least some MCU heroes are traveling into the X-Men universe instead of the X-Men simply coming to theirs. Thor might have the biggest role outside Doctor Doom himself. Throughout the trailer, he's fighting, gathering heroes, and delivering what feels like the emotional speech of the movie. He basically says he's fought alongside some of the greatest warriors imaginable, stronger than everyone standing there combined, and they still died against enemies that scared him less than Doctor Doom does. That's saying something because Thor has fought Loki, Hela, Thanos, Gore, and plenty of other monsters over the years. His message is simple: stop arguing. Work together because nothing else matters anymore. If they don't, everything every hero sacrificed before this becomes meaningless. It's probably the strongest indication yet that Doom is going to be an absolute monster. Then comes one of the biggest reveals. Right at the end, when Thor says they'll need a miracle, Steve Rogers returns. Chris Evans is finally back as Captain America, and the moment is simple but effective. Mjolnir flies back into his hand, proving he's still worthy. There aren't any long speeches or dramatic explanations. Marvel lets that one moment do all the work. It immediately tells audiences this is the same Steve Rogers they remember, and it also makes him look like the secret weapon against Doom. Finally, there's Doctor Doom himself. Fans have been waiting forever to see Robert Downey Jr. in full costume, and the trailer doesn't disappoint. The armor looks incredibly comic accurate, complete with the silver metal suit, green cloak, and classic mask hiding Victor Von Doom's face. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.